Hey everyone, it's Kevin with My Shop Assist. In this video today, I'm going to go over what the owner or a shop manager kind of does as a role and what they should be looking for to make sure the shop basically meets the goal of obviously making money, staying in business, paying everybody, and overall just running a efficient operation. You know, a single owner operator is going to be doing this along with everything else, but I'm just going to point out what the role is as an owner and what you should be doing and kind of explain what you need to be looking for and how to do it all. Okay, here we are. So what I have here is I have the workflow for a manager or an owner. To begin, what we really want to start with is our annual goal. Where do we want to be at the end of the year? How much money do we want to have? Make sure we cover all our expenses, pay all our employees, you know, if we want to buy any equipment, any of that sort of stuff. We are going to set that as the goal. And this profitability guide that we've built into MSA will help us do that. So we can set the goal. That's the very first step, how much money we want to make. And then we will walk through all that. And I will show you a quick little demo of how it works, because I think it's quite honestly the most important piece of MSA for an owner to guide the shop on where to go, and not just using it to manage builds and, you know, update customers. There's a lot more to a business than just that, and this is, I think, something is very unique and very powerful. So once we have set our goals, the next thing is determining our hourly rate. So hourly rate is not a number you pick out of thin air. It's not something you look at someone else and compare and say, hey, we need to be $5 more than them or $5 less than them. It is not a random number. We know our fixed expenses. We know our payroll. We know how much money we want to make. We can figure out mathematically what our hourly rate needs to be to cover all that stuff. And we're going to walk it through that. The software does it for us. And then what you do is, in order to make sure that we stay on target, we do have weekly goals and some graphs to show you, like, hey, are we doing enough part sales? Are we doing enough labor sales? Is our gross profit per hour high enough? Are our technicians being productive? All that stuff sort of plays into all this. So let's go ahead and get into the profitability guide, and then we'll kind of move through the rest of this guide here. Okay, so I pulled up the profitability guide for my shop. So there's 8 steps that are all super easy to figure out. What you will be doing is you're going to want to go through the beginning. So move to step 1. And for a shop, your goal is going to be how much money you make at the end of the year. Really, that's like businesses are set up to make money. That's what we're going to do. Obviously, having fun and doing all our stuff is a piece of it as well. But at least on paper, at the end of the year, how much money you made determines if you're still in business or not. So I would recommend 10% of your gross revenue. So however much money you take in, if you do $1 million a year in total sales, just set this to 100 grand. Step 2, you're going to go through here and you're going to put all your expenses. Now, I modeled this after P&L. So if you have an accountant, they have definitely made a P&L for you, because that's what they use to fill out your taxes at the end of the year. So the best thing to do is go through your P&L for the previous year, take all your line items for your expenses and put them in here. So your rent, your insurance, utilities, software, vehicles, shop supplies, advertising, professional fees, car or truck. Like a lot of shops have a development vehicle or a cool car that they use for advertising, right? Small tools and equipment. Maybe you have a loan for some equipment. Any of that sort of stuff, put that in here. Those are your annual costs. And they might vary from month to month, but we're ballparking. This is a guide. It is not an exact science. It's going to get us in the direction we need to go. Banking credit card fees, these scale with sales. So you're going to have to put a percentage in here and then guesstimate how many, what percentage of your sales is paid with a credit card. And then that will tell you what your credit card fees are going to be as well, because that's also a fairly substantial expense for shops. Okay, so that's your expenses. The next one is going to be your payroll, right? So you're going to be putting in like what you pay everybody per hour, how many hours a week they work. And then this is the important part here, is what you think their productivity is going to be. This number, if you don't know what it should be, we actually calculate what they're at so far, assuming you track time. So I should say the whole entire point of this thing is, if you are not tracking time on everything you do, there's no way any of this is going to work. You need to know how often people are working, what they're working on, how productive they are, how efficient they are. It is absolutely essential that everybody track time at the shop. Whether if you're an office person, just clocking in at the beginning of the day, that's good enough. If you're a technician, we need to know what you're working on and when you're working on it, always. And that's pretty self-explanatory if you're a performance shop. If you can't handle that, then you're more than likely not going to make it without insane markups and just guessing. So yeah, so what you can do is you can put what you pay the person, how many hours a week they work, and then a productivity target. And so you can look to see what their year-to-date total is and what your goals are. And then it will tell you what the estimated revenue that technician can generate you in a year. And so it's going off of your productivity over your hours per week. And so it's just a percentage. So if you're 30% productive and you're working 40 hours a week, it's going to tell you what your billable hours will be. And then we calculate that on estimated revenue, which is your hourly rate multiplied by the hours you can bill. Okay, so if you do any benefits, retirement, healthcare, or health insurance, the employer side taxes is generally around 10%. And so that will tell you the total revenue you can generate on your labor side, and it will tell you your total payroll expenses. So it's going to add it to our mock P&L on the left-hand side. And then what that's going to do is that's going to tell us the gross profit the shop needs to generate to cover payroll, our annual fixed expenses, and the profit we want to make at the end of the year. So we need to make $415,000 gross profit, which is labor revenue, and then parts profit. So parts sales minus the cost of goods sold. And you can consider some like subcontracted stuff in there as well, which we do treat kind of like parts. My shop needs about $415,000 to cover all my expenses and take home $100,000. Okay, so now we kind of look at the top of this where the actual profit comes from. So parts sales we're going to start with. General repair, these guys have like crazy markups on everything. Like 100% is an unheard of for a normal part. If you're in performance world, 100% is crazy. Just about everything that we work with, people will cross shop you online, and they're going to know going in that the Exedi clutch costs $3,200, and if you try charging $4,000, which is the MSRP for it, they're going to just go somewhere else. And so that's something you need to be cognizant of. So we take care of this, right? So we know an average profit or parts gross margin we have. And so for me, the year to date is 23%. Earlier the year, it was only like 18 or 15 or somewhere in there. And I've made a goal to set it higher, and I've been using this tool, and we're up probably 10% already this year, which is good. And I think we could go higher, but it's hard to do that and still maintain part sales without people shopping you elsewhere. The second piece to that is parts to labor ratios, or what percent of the revenue is parts and labor in a job. And so we've got that ratio here, and then your year-to-date total so you can compare. We need to do $92,000 of parts profit, and it's a roughly $380,000 of parts sales to fit in this target that we have here. When we go to the next step, we are going to have what I think is probably the most important piece of this. This kind of puts the step 1 through 5 into one thing, and then lets you fill in the last little bit. So what I said by your profitability is dependent upon your hourly rate, and your hourly rate is not a guess. So this left-hand graph here is what you need to stay in business. Well, at least the red and the yellow keeps your doors open, and the green is what makes it a business, a profit business, a for-profit business. We look at the payroll and how many billable hours you can do in a year. So that's per year. And then we apply that to the total sales we need to make. So we need to make $415,000 worth of sales. And so we factor that in. So we need about $74 per billable hour covers operating expenses. $109 per billable hour covers payroll. And then to hit our profit at the end of the year, $58 per hour goes to profit. So that's showing us we need a gross profit of $241 per hour at my shop. That covers my expenses, it covers my payroll, it covers my profit guide. Most of it's very high because we don't have a lot of people, and I have a lot of expenses, and I myself do not work on cars very often because I'm doing this stuff all the time. So minimum $241 per hour gross profit. Now understand gross profit is not hourly rate because parts are a piece of that as well. So the next step we look at, so this is what we're charging people. Our parts is going to be a percentage of that. So we calculate, we already know our part sales. That's going to be roughly $55 per billable hour is going to come from parts. And the rest is our hourly rate on labor. So at my shop, in order to stay above $241 gross profit per hour, $185 per hour is right at the edge. So I keep it at 200, which gives me a little bit of extra margin. It's like about a 7% margin on top of that in order to hit the targets we need. Obviously, some jobs you can be even higher on your gross profit per hour, especially book time stuff. But if you're performance world, some of it's hourly, especially like restoration stuff. all of it straight hourly, you'll never get over 100% productive. A lot of performance work is like fixed price is what we've done forever. And a lot of those are losers. So we now have a tool to figure out what are losers and how to fix that. So use this tool to determine what your hourly rate needs to be. The right-hand column needs to be above the left-hand column. So if you're down here, you're not paying your people. You're coming out of pocket for that, right? So if you're at $100 an hour and you have $240 an hour of expenses, you just ain't going to make it. So yeah. And then what that does is it gives you a roadmap of how many billable hours you need a week, how much sales you need to do a week. And then it will tell you, all the targets you need to hit it. And then we have a weekly updater. So you can check this every day, making sure you're hitting your weekly targeted build hours, your part sales, your efficiency, productivity, total revenue, gross profit per hour, and gross profit per build hour. So we calculate this two different ways. So gross profit per hour includes everybody, even overhead people, hour into that. So it's your profit divided by total hours worked at the shop and gross profit per build hours. And then we have some adjustments you can make. So these are tools you can go through and make adjustments. And like if you're not charging enough, you're not putting wholesale prices in, if your tasks are too low, if your technician's not efficient, this is where you make your adjustments as an owner. You go in here and you say, okay, what parts are missing wholesale prices? Go in here and one at a time, make the corrections. And then the next week, it should be a little less. And the next week, it'll be a little less. And over time, that list should get smaller and smaller to the point where all your parts have correct pricing on it. And then your estimating gets better and better. Okay, so let me switch back to the guide here. So I know that was a long one, but that covers the section here, using the profitability guide to use your year-end goals, and then using the tools to determine what your hourly rate needs to be, and then using the weekly targets to adjust. And so this is kind of the overview, but we have the individual reports you're going to use to do this sort of stuff. Okay, so let's go into these tools next, just to show you roughly what you're going to be looking for, as an owner, to make sure that the actual results are getting to where we need to be for the profitability guide. So let's go to the job profitability first. So when you go into a job, I'm just going to do a random fake job here. There's a little $sign on the top right. This is going to show you what you need to know on a job. This thing is going to look at your profitability guide and determine if you're above the gross profit per build hour. And it's also going to look at your labor on here when you track time, and it will actually calculate it, and it'll tell you if you're above and below where you need to be and the billable hours completed. And if you're tracking time on it, then these things will fill in instead of just being blank on here. And then it just tells you in an individual job level if you're making money or not. And if this guy here, when you're actually tracking time, is falling below what you need it to be on the labor guide, which for us is $241 per hour, then you need to make adjustments. The employee service report. So this is a big one too. So when you go to your reports, you go to your completed report, you go to your overview, and you go to your employee service report. I'll pick myself here. When you go through this for like the last week, you can see each day. Well, at the top, we have the totals, right? So I personally clocked 25 hours last week. I recorded 14.4 hours. I completed 16.7 billable hours. So I was 70% productive because I was there 25 hours and completed 17 hours. And then day by day, I can see each day how productive I was, how many hours I clocked, what I was working on, if it wasn't completed, if I'm doing manufacturing orders, which are internal. And you just keep going down each day and making sure that overall your weekly or payroll cycle, like you can use a payroll cycle here, is above your target productivity. That is the goal. You need to be above the target productivity for each person in order for the shop to stay within our margins that we need. Okay, and then the task report. The task report is also super important to make sure what we're working on, we're tracking time correctly. So for that, we have another report. If you go to the task report, and you can run this thing for, like, depending how long you've used MSA, you can go back a couple of years and do a search. And it will tell you, we can sort this by how many times we performed it. And so like an oil change, we've done 66 of them. We estimate them at a half hour. Our average is 0.37. So you can click on it. It will show you every single time you did it and who did it and how long it took them to do it. Overall, you want your averages to be under your estimated. That way you know you're making money. If you are averaging over your estimated, you're not making money on anything. You're going to be falling underneath your productivity. You'll never be able to hit 100% productive on a task. It will always be under. You use this report to look to see, and you can sort it by margin to see which ones are really losers. The last set we did were big time losers, and we can look to see why. So on this Evo 4, we had to do some wheel bearings. Those are done a lot different than the Evo 8s that are bolt-in. So it took a lot longer. Okay, so those are the 3 tools that you really need to use to make sure the shop is making money. Looking at the job profitability report at an individual job. The employee service report will tell you if the technician is being efficient, productive, using their time wisely, not screwing around. And then the estimated time for actual time on tasks, that is going to guide you to know that it's not the technician that's the problem, it's your estimating that's the problem. And every task can be different. And so you need to use a combination of all 3 of these tools to really improve on the shop floor how you make that money. And so that way the guide stays on track. We kind of set our targets, and then we use these feedback to, feedback into the loop and then make our adjustments. As a manager, if you're a 1-person operation, you're going to be doing it all yourself. But most businesses are, at least once you get established, it's not just 1 person anymore. So the manager is going to be working with the accountant, and the accountant is going to be looking at the P&L to make sure that your actual real numbers are matching or at least close to what you want with your guide. So if the accountant is saying you're making, $50,000 less than you thought you were, well, now something's wrong. Where are we missing the billing? And then you may have a hole somewhere you need to fill. So using the accountant to give feedback on that side as well, so you can make adjustments if needed. And same goes for the parts manager. Maybe like some of the parts pricing are incorrect, and you need to do a better job of updating that, and you're losing money on parts. That's something also you need to keep track of. Looking at the parts manager video, we'll kind of go over the process of that to make sure we can minimize the amount of mistakes that are made in that, and same for the accountant. So all these things kind of work together. It's obviously not just a manager just looking over everybody and kind of telling them what to do, like down in the trenches, kind of understanding what's going on and then making the correct decisions on how to, make the money you want to make. And again, none of this works without time tracking. If you are not tracking time, or your technicians are not tracking time, everything falls apart. If you are a time and materials, like a restoration shop, if you are a performance shop that does a lot of like custom fab or tuning or engine building, all this sort of stuff takes a lot more time than you think it does, I promise. And if you don't track time on it, you don't know where your time is going, and you cannot make the corrections you need to make. So most important, track your time. Our system is bar none the best at doing it. And so use the timers on all the tasks and the jobs, and it will be wonderful when you see the results. Okay, thanks for watching this one. The next one I'm going to go over is going to be the parts manager.